Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Duval Dive. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, student of the game. Welcome in here. Of course, I am of fans. That is different. Okay, so that's a thing that happened. Anyways, welcome into the Duval Dive. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, student of the game of Fans First Sports Network. An honor, joy, and privilege to have you in the final week 24 of actual football before we flipped officially into the, well, as far as the Jags are concerned, it's the offseason, but the NFL postseason. I know we're at this point, a lot of you Duval devout out there are, how you say, numb to the struggles, so to speak. But here to help you through all of it is, of course, me and my good friend Travis D. Holmes. Will have him on a bit. Of course, he's a Big Cat country, but a lot of things to go over. A lot of bowl season stuff. You might have seen my work covering the Cure Bowl, the Pop-Tarts Bowl, and the Citrus Bowl on Fans First Sports Network. But most importantly, we're talking about the Alamo Bowl, where Travis Hunter, despite the Colorado Buffaloes getting crushed by the Cougars of Brigham Young, Travis Hunter made plays. He was about the only person who did make plays in that game, depending on who you ask. But we'll be talking about Travis Hunter, and for all you Travis Hunters out there in the Duval about, can the Jags still snag him if they hold at pick 5? That'll be one effort of conversation. Robert, I see you. We're going to be touching on subjects for Black Monday. I know you want Black Monday here sooner than later, and I'm pretty sure you're looking for more than one name on that list. Although, Robert, I got bad news for you. Somebody's out there forecasting. Here's Louis Chesney. Dr. Douglas ain't going anywhere. That's that's interesting. And I think this is the point where I bring in my good friend, my personal champion, Travis D. Holmes, to weigh in on some of this. What's going on, my man?
Hey man, I'm doing well. We're in the final stretch, baby. This is it. Congratulations, Duval. You made it. Through hell or high water, you made it.
No, and listen, obviously, people talking about Black Monday here in the comments off of the jump. Not mad at you, Duval Devout. That's not my issue. That's not my problem. That's not what I'm angry about you with. I don't know that I've ever been angry at the Duval Devout, ever. Even if the 49ers have played y'all, like, that's not been a problem for me, Duval Devout. I'll give you credit.
Not y'all. All right.
But, I dropped the y'all. Hey, listen, I kept with it. So I'll say this. Let's leave with this. And I addressed it earlier here. The Jags currently, if everything holds, it appears that they will be the 5th overall pick. We touched on it a little bit this past Sunday on the Duval Dive Live, that the Titans being that high, should they lose again, not necessarily a bad thing. One would assume that the Texans can handle business here on Sunday, but it ain't like they need to. And frankly, you never know with that group lately. I mean, we're out here comparing C.J. Stroud to Danny Dimes, or oh no, that's not a thing that happened. Sorry. Anyways, all the writing is on the wall there too. Listen, Lou throwing some love here. He says, I am a Titan. Listen, 4-2 will be good. Listen. Well, and maybe with a Titan there in the comments, you could respond to this comment. We touched on it a bit this past Sunday, that the Titans being stuck where they are, I shouldn't say stuck, but like as far as being in the higher picks, you're in a position to pick in a draft class that's being dubbed weak, air quotes. I think the last thing that was close to this was, of course, when Malik Willis was the draftee, and the Titans picked up as well. And of course, that experiment did not go according to plan. Either you could be in a situation where you're getting a guy that may not pan, whether it be Cam Ward, or whether your accord is Ward, or you're trying to pander for Sanders, whatever your situation may be, or another quarterback. I don't know. Maybe you're trying to get BYU's guy. I have no idea. But the Titans being in a position to get a draft class in this, get a quarterback in this draft class might be good news for, that situation.
I think it's good news for the Jacksonville Jaguars fans personally. Like if there is a year that the Jaguars want to give up that top pick or those top picks to the Tennessee Titans, this is the year. I would absolutely much rather they end up getting one of these quarterbacks than pushing that to 2025. So from Jacksonville terms, I'm actually okay with how this thing kind of worked out. And you never really know how it's going to work out, because the Tennessee Titans could do something crazy. Like, I don't know when in week 18. So
whoa, hey, let's pump them brakes. Now, honestly, with the way the Colts have been struggling, you can't rule that out either. Maybe they'll take themselves out of the race outright. Maybe that'll make it more palatable for the Titans to trade things back like that. Let's say, tell Tom Brady about the draft. Well, I guess that's an option. Sure.
I mean, you can always find somebody who's going to be the exception to the rule, but that's why the rule exists, bro. The rule exists because most of the time it's going to go this way. So the Titans could do something crazy like beat the Texans, and I'm not even 100% sure if I remember correctly. I thought, are the Texans not playing their starters or no?
I haven't
sure how
heard.
that was going to go.
For me, that could go either way. I have not looked at the situation. Robert jumps in. Ward could be good. I listen. I think Cam Ward has a possibly good. I think Shedeur Sanders in the right surroundings could also work in this league. But
Will Levis could have been good, but he wasn't. I'm just saying probability. No. All I'm saying is probability. I'm not saying that Ward couldn't be good, because I want to be clear in saying this. Just all jokes aside.
Yeah.
Cam Ward could be good, and I think there's absolutely a possibility that he may be good. But in the words of Kevin O'Connell, bad organizations ruin a good quarterback long before a good quarterback ruin the organization. So if you have a bad organization with no good structure surrounding it and probably going through a rebuild, you're going to have a harder time making this thing work. So from my perspective, I would love to see a quarterback who needs and requires time and development go to a team that it doesn't have much of a structure around them.
Yeah.
No, for me and from my perspective, I want to see a developmental quarterback go to a team like the Tennessee Titans, where they're just probably not going to give him that.
Well, I mean, as a member of the Duval Duval, yes, exactly. No, sure, your psychology, I get it. By the way, Robert throws in. He's one of those, if you know, with my Danny Dimes reference earlier. I got to dig that. And then Lou jumps in. He's like, Will Levis is my friend. Well, I dig it. Like, here's the thing. You sent him a friend request. Hey, we're glad you're tight with the Mayonnaise Messiah. What I'm trying to say is Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward are both given credit for being able to read defenses and have some intelligence at quarterback. Will Levis was not that guy. He was always, as I understood it, and this was what I observed in my limited scouting prowess, to be a dude that could chuck it from the cheap seats, has a really good arm, does get along with his teammates, sure, but he was not going to be a cerebral dude that's going to pick apart the other side at this point, at the point of his being drafted. Can he learn it? Sure, all that. The excellent point being made. Hey, there were points where Tyrod Taylor was good. I get it. But that with all being said, I mean, the crux of the situation is this. Now, granted, before we get too deep into it, anybody takes anything we say in this particular segment too seriously, Travis D. Holmes and I both are members of the camp of the trade it back variety. Let's get more than one asset that the Jags need to rebuild, rather than just deliver on Travis Hunter. Granted, we say that mostly on the strength of Trent Baalke being the guy we expect to make picks in the past. We don't know what we're getting here, so maybe a different GM. Maybe, I'm not saying Howard Roseman's going to just decide to leave the Eagles and come retire in Florida and work for Jacksonville every draft season just for something to do. I don't think that's going to happen. Just like we don't really think all that's going to happen, that they'll trade back. But in the event they don't, Travis D. Holmes, can Travis Hunters expect Hunter to be there at the 5th pick?
I mean, it's possible. I will say it's probably unlikely, but I do believe it's possible. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what we're gonna have to go through that post-draft process, because again, anybody who's not a Travis Hunter, and it may have some questions as far as his draft profile. And what I mean by draft profile is, I mean, there are many players in the NFL who have a certain height and a certain we'll say just height, weight profile, speed, etc., that
Right.
you generally are going to be slotted in certain positions. So for someone of Travis Hunter's size, you're probably going to be slotted as to being normally a slot receiver. It's not to say that you can't play outside, because again, Devontae Smith exists. Like those types of receivers can play in some different spots, but for the most part, if you have a guy that's that height, that weight, that speed, you're probably going to have them playing, I don't know, 60%, 70% of their snaps in the slot. That's not someone you would generally draft as your number one pick, number one and number two pick normally.
Right.
And the same thing applies for his play at cornerback. A lot of the times he's been slotted as being a slot cornerback. Well, if you're not drafting a slot cornerback at the top of the draft, but if you can play both sides, does that vault him up into that top one, top two pick? That's the question. I mean, when you get into the draft, the combine and all of that stuff, that could make or break everything in those interviews and everything else. But I think those are the questions that still need to be asked and answered. But I think, the Jaguars have a potential to get someone like Travis Hunter at pick 5, maybe even pick 4. We'll see how this thing works out on Sunday, because that's going to kind of make everything. The Jaguars can slip anywhere from 5 to 10. I'm sorry, 3 to 10. Depending on the outcome of this game and the other outcome of the surrounding game. So this thing can get real wild in week 18. So I'm kind of curious how the Jaguars perform.
Hef says here, yes, it depends on New England. And I think that's the point I'm about to make, right? I'm certain that the New England Patriots are going to move off of Drake May. Somebody in the building has finally realized and listened to what I've been preaching for years, that you leave ACC quarterbacks not named Trevor Lawrence alone to be your immediate starter. They aren't good. I will even venture to say they're bad. When they draft Cam Ward, that's going to put, you see how I worded that, by the way? When they draft Cam Ward, that's going to put the Titans in a hell of a bind. What do? Do they pander for Sanders? Would they have been already briefed by Dion? Ain't nobody care. You pick Shador, he's not going to play, right? Whatever.
That's been the conversation surrounding whether or not, like, I believe Nick Wright even had a conversation that he was kind of putting out that agenda or that narrative, discussing whether or not Dion should try to coach for the New England Patriots if they move off from Mayo. Moving off if they decide to draft a new quarterback. And from my perspective, I consider that more like the who was it? The Kyler Murray, Rosen conversation, basically, when they already had a quarterback in place and it was a top quarterback and they still end up getting a new quarterback with a new regime in the following year. Hey, that's kind of what it looks like. If you don't think he's the guy, and there's still that whole conversation of whether he is or is not the guy, because New England fans have been treating him like, well, honestly, a lot like the people in Tennessee treated the Mayo Messiah. They've been treating him like he's God's grace to football, and he's honestly just been, he's been okay. He's not been bad, but he hasn't deserved the hype that has been surrounding him, because they're putting the whole future of the franchise on this young man, and it maybe undeservedly so.
So let's analyze the difference real quick, though, between what's going on there with May and Mayo Messiahs here, okay? Drake May is first year, all that, I get it. Oh, you're asinine to think you'll move off him as a rookie. I'm not going to rule it out with this franchise, though. I don't care if Belichick's there anymore or not. However, with the Mayonnaise Messiah, with Will Levis, it's been pretty clear that he doesn't have the genes to run this franchise. I did it, Travis Holmes. Deal with it. So the punchline,
that boy.
But the punchline's this: like, they put together an offense and a grouping that was supposed. Man, you heard them Titans fans chirping. Oh, we got all this. We have this great roster. We're gonna be so great. We got this. I notice how you're not listing your quarterback in that conversation. It's because he was given all these tools and did not produce. And I get it. Injuries were a thing that happened. Y'all weren't producing early, Titans. You lost to the Bears, which now means something a lot worse at this point than it did when it happened. But that's not the point. The main reason you lost it with that stacked roster was Will Levis.
That stank quarterback, that was it. And even Titans fans started admitting it at that point, when you had a memeable moment, literally like multiple 3 to 4 weeks straight, and often from the quarterback position. And when you start talking about moving Mason Rudolph into the starting lineup over Will Levis, it's a wrap. that's it. I mean, it's over, man. Fat Lady singing, and they singing in the first half of the season. Like that's kind of where we are. And then we had that conversation with Titans fans in the offseason, and this is where we are, unfortunately. And I don't want to make this a Titans centric podcast, but nevertheless, that does impact how the draft lands.
Correct.
Because we're talking about them potentially moving off their quarterback, getting maybe a Drake May from New England maybe drafting one of those top quarterbacks, and that opens up a lot more of a higher probability of someone like Travis Hunter, Mason Graham, one of those guys being available at 5 for the Jacksonville Jaguars to either bounce on or trade back and get some ammunition for it. Either way, it's a great situation for Jacksonville, though.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know. I personally don't know if Dion would actually take the job, but there is a case to be made for Brian.
I think he will.
Well, okay, but there's a case to be made that that the Titans might potentially move off of Brian Callahan as well as the head coach after this first year's debacle. I'm not saying it should or would happen, but if they pander for Sanders, they're going to get them both. I feel like.
Well, that was an argument. That was an argument that I had with Titans. I took a victory lap this week. I enjoyed taking that victory lap this week, both on Will Levis's regression that I called all offseason. Hell, I called that for the last year when he exploded last year.
Hey, take your flowers for the Stroud regression too while we're on this podcast.
CJ Stroud's regression, I called that when I said he was going to have 9 to 10 interceptions this season, and people thought I was crazy. And I'm like, hey man, that's just basic math. And if I do want to have one thing, I have an accounting degree. I know how to do some math. That's regression to the average. That's regression to the mean.
Right. A correction, if you will, if we're going to get into true economic terms. Yeah. And for me,
it's going to happen.
I wasn't brave enough to do the same, but I certainly said on that podcast that I could see where you're going and it makes sense. I just wasn't brave enough.
That's it. I'm a math guy, man. That's all I am. Even with the Jaguars, I said the Jaguars were going to win 8 or less games, and then I kind of got teal. I had teal shades on, and I ended up starting to put it up to 9 wins. And I'm like, dang, but the math told me 8 or less because that's just how it's. That's just an average over a 3-year time frame. That's kind of where you're going to land. And I am a math guy if I am nothing else.
There is no level of math that could have calculated for how porous the O-line was going to be.
But they were always porous.
No, but there was. I'm not saying they weren't always porous. I mean, they're even more so than we thought, right?
I actually disagree with you on that.
Okay, well, before we bang that drum, if you did disagree with me on that, then that just makes your record prediction even more inexcusable. But we'll move forward off of that. There's no way either of us could have predicted the myriad of injuries that hit the Jags over and above Trevor Lawrence, right? This receiver core, not BTJ, has not started the same group, and they don't even have their damn tight end. So, yeah, that's a factor. That matters,
I guess. They were going to win some of these games against the sorry teams anyways. Because, again, they've won 3 of their 4 games. DJ Shark, thank you. That might be beneficial at this point, bro. I mean, we're getting Allen Robinson sightings these days in the Detroit Lions game. So I'm just like, I'm in on bringing all the old school receivers at this point because we need help. I mean, we really don't need help at this point. We need to just get this season done, get this last game done. I don't want to say hopefully a loss, but kind of hopefully a loss. There is no winner in winning this game against the Colts. So
yeah, who loses? America. That's right. Yeah.
As always, America. But but I do feel for Rand Carthon, the Titans GM, because he did what he was supposed to do. He brought in an older staff, an older like core of players, just to find out whether or not Will Levis was the guy. He figured that out. Will Levis wasn't the guy, and now he's going to move off of him. Same thing with Callahan. Brian Callahan didn't call plays since high school until this year. I banged that drum all season, and I said straight up, I don't know if he's going to be good or not. We'll see. And he wasn't. But he also had a bad quarterback.
Yeah, for the offense that they were trying to build, which represented a complete 180 from we're going to punch you in the mouth and then ask the quarterback to make the occasional third down throw to we're bombing it, and then you bring in Callahan, who was known for his running prowess. Like you mentioned him not having called plays. I had questions beyond that myself, even my friend. The point is we weren't confident in the Titans.
Right.
jettisoning of Mike Vrabel by any stretch. So
let's get into that in that similar vein. Let's split that to the Jacksonville Jaguars, because all Jacksonville Jaguar fans, I saw many of them over training camp and out at practices and everything else. It's all had this understanding that the Jacksonville Jaguars were going to come out of training camp with this explosive offense that involved Brian Thomas Jr. being this vertical deep threat receiver, and but I'm just saying, and Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram eating everything underneath. That's what we all believe was going to happen.
That's what you and I talked about. You remember how much doubt there was for BTJ? I had to taunt the Duval Devout. You remember the short. You're reminding me I got to go to our Duval Dive YouTube channel and give that a bump out there in the social media so people could remember that was a thing. But go ahead, sorry.
But it's crazy. They never got out of their own way, and they being Doug Peterson, being Press Taylor, never got out of their own way. And even to the point where we got to the bye week of the Jacksonville Jaguars having press conferences with these guys, and they're admitting, hey, maybe the fans were smarter than us that said we should have gotten BTJ involved earlier. And they said it tongue-in-cheek and more as a joke, but most people who heard that was like, no, yeah, we probably were smarter than you in that way, because obviously, instead of being so stagnant in the way that you view the offense, where it says Christian Kirk has to be the slot, Evan Ingram has to be the split out wide 40 to 50% of the time and be your slot receiver. BTJ has to be outside, and Gabe Davis has to be outside, and we have to do it this way instead of being that stagnant. Now we're seeing later in the season, because of all these injuries to Gabe Davis, the injury to Christian Kirk, to the injury to Evan Ingram, where they have to do a lot of motion. They have to move Brian Thomas Jr. all around. They have to use him and treat him like a number one receiver. All of a sudden, the offense looks good, even though you have Mac Jones throwing like a ridiculously low ADOT, average depth of target. Yes. But he's getting Brian Thomas Jr. involved. He's throwing a lot of screen passes to him, things like that. That would have been easy completions for Trevor Lawrence that they just never gave Trevor. And they're giving them to Mac Jones. And people are like, well, why is Mac doing so much better than Trevor? Because they're giving him layups. Yeah. Freaking the level of difficulty for Trevor Lawrence was so ridiculously high. Earlier in the season. And it's because they had these square peg, round hole situations where they just would not play players at other positions other than the ones that they have labeled XYZ. You are playing this and only this. Bruh, it's freaking galaxy brain, man.
So let me catch up to some of these comments too, because they're flooding in here faster than I can keep up with some of these too. It's Lou in here talking about the Waffle House is bankrupt. So
Waffle House can never go bankrupt, dog. I don't know when to leave the state if Waffle House is bankrupt, because I can't trust the news.
They might be getting secret government sanctions from FEMA to help predict the severity of hurricanes, right? Have mentioned he calls the D-line being, the Texans O-line being terrible. I don't know that I would have called the entire O-line, but there were pieces that were questioned. Sure, totally. Have I get you with that?
And they were bad last year too. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like Jags 2023, when you get first place schedule on a second year, you're going to regress. Yeah, you talked about that, Travis. That's a very thing you mentioned on this show, no question. Going full Duval Devout, beat the Colts.
All right.
See,
wait,
no blockage.
Didn't Lewis say he was the one? He was
the tight end. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, you gotta understand, the tight end making sense being anti-Colts is perfect. Remember, their history with them is just brutal. Why am I having to tell you that?
They might be anti-Colts, but they saying this to make sure that the Jacksonville Jaguars get a first draft pick. I see you, Lewis.
Yeah, but at any rate, no blockage. Travis the meanie. If you're looking for anything different on this show, anyways.
Every detail has to be perfect. Yeah.
So want to be intelligence, want to play chess. Travis meeting. That's the biggest backhanded compliment I've ever seen, and I love it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, every detail had to be perfect.
Every detail had to be perfect for the Jacksonville Jaguars offense to operate. And that's unfortunate, because we always going to have that one player that misses the block, the one play. Like on any NFL team, you're never going to have 11 out of 11 do everything right, but it should be fine if you can get 10 out of 11 on most plays, but that's not for the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's
I
too
don't know how
inefficient,
many
man.
times they actually win 10 of 11. I think that's the real problem we have. And I saw it earlier in a comment. I'll go back to it. I don't necessarily agree with it outright, but it's an interesting point. Hef mentions doesn't help you drafted a right tackle to be a left tackle. So
A
how
right
much
tackle to
that
play left tackle.
how much that matters is dependent on the player. I don't know if that's a direct reference to Anton Harrison or Walker Little or whoever that's supposed to be about, but it could apply to both. Because if you're talking,
I assumed he was talking about Walker Little, but if I'm wrong, please correct me.
yeah, and it's probably the safer assumption because the Anton Harrison version goes with my conspiracy theory on this show that I've made in the past that Anton Harrison may be the starting left tackle for 25, depending on how things go, right? Not that that's a bad thing necessarily. It may not be ideal, but we can chomp on that more in 2025.
Yeah.
Let's get to
but nevertheless, I mean, we're having a lot of interesting conversations talking about what's the future of the Jacksonville Jaguars running back room, and we're going to have a whole offseason to kind of talk about that. We have a big conversation as reference to the safety situation and if they're going to, try to re-sign Cisco on a prove-it deal, or whether or not they're just going to flip over that entire room, because now you'll have one guy on his last year of his contract and Cisco basically, a free agent, unless they make another decision there.
Will they sign him long term?
You got the situation with freaking Eric Armstead, whether or not he's actually ever going to really play defensive tackle, or are you just going to have him as your rotational as a $13 million rotational defensive end? It's crazy, man. So I'm real curious about how these decisions are going to make, but we can't get there until we get past week 18 against the Indianapolis Colts. Will this be Doug Peterson's last hurrah, or will he?
Or will it be Doug Peterson's hell nah? That's
no. I mean, there is a non-zero chance, and I do believe Doug's probably out of the door. But there is absolutely a non-zero chance where Doug can get Trent can get Shad's ear and say, "All right, we gave Trent all the opportunities to kind of make this thing right, and he's kind of failed me at this level, at this spot, at this spot, at this spot. Can I have 1 year to see if I can get this my way?" And you just get Trent out of the door. And I think it will be crazy. I think it'll be irresponsible. I think it'll be all the verbiage and all the negative words. But I do think there's a sales pitch there, if you want to be real about it. Like, I don't know that Trevor and Doug necessarily have the greatest relationship because this whole who's calling plays kind of situation with press and all of that. I don't know that the guys necessarily believe in the scheme as far as offense and defense for that matter. But there's a lot of infighting that's going on between that coach and that GM, and I don't think that's arguable at this point. And I do believe one of them will be gone, if not both of them. But I do have that question because I don't think anybody's really having the conversation of, hey, man, what happens if Doug's the one that stays and Trent's the one that's out of the door? Like, I think that's an interesting enough conversation because that's exactly what happened with the Titans and Rand Carthon and Mike Babel. They chose the new GM and let the existing coach stay on for 1 year and see if he can get it right before they end up firing Babel after the fact. And I think that would be an interesting kind of situation.
Yeah, and honestly, I think most of the Duval that will find that palatable by comparison. And we had a whole other conversation about search firms and coach hunts and all this other stuff, but we done tore through the time on all these other what have yous, Travis. And you know what? I'm perfectly fine tabling that topic. We are going to be talking about playoffs, so let's go. With that in mind, the Indianapolis Colts.
I know we're not going to get deep into it, but at least just to give the people you got to give them something. You got to give them something. So the fact of the matter is the Jacksonville Jaguars will likely be hiring a new head coach in 2025. The conversation basically begun about whether or not the Jaguars would hire a coaching firm because they haven't done that since the 2012 coaching cycle when they ended up staying with Doug Marrone instead of hiring Kyle Shanahan and a few other guys that they ended up interviewing in that coaching cycle. And I believe that was Corn Ferry, who they ended up bringing in to handle that coaching search. So there's a conversation of, well, would the Jaguars even go about circling back and hiring a coaching firm to help out with that hiring? Or would they, again, for let's say the third time now, stick with Shad Khan making these decisions with seemingly without the help of any other like leadership kind of staff, leadership group, organization, someone whispering in his ear. An EVP would be nice to Hef's point, but I don't know that they're going to do the EVP route. Again, everything that I'm hearing says they are absolutely against doing that. And I know we're going to jump into that real deep on another podcast, but that's kind of where we're kind of leaning with this conversation throughout this offseason is what will the Jaguars do? But first thing first, we got to find out what they're going to do on Black Monday. And will they fire Trent? Will they fire Doug? What will the outcome of the game even be? I mean, that's where we're at right now.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned the outcome of the game because that's the part we got to talk about here before we wrap up. What do you think is going to happen? Now, remember, I dunked on your face this past Sunday because of your Cam Little disrespect and called 20 points absolutely accurately. Ha, 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 ha. Nay, 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 nay.
Yeah.
No,
you did. But in my defense,
I know I'm just petty and bitter about you tweeting out there in public that well, actually, Cam Little is the less deserving Pro Bowler when I was just making jokes on the pod. See,
I mean, in my defense, I did not think Mason Rudolph would be as bad as he was. And that's the crazy part. And he still, I knew he was going to be bad. I didn't know he was going to be 42 yards at the half bad, though. That's something. That's something that even caught me off guard a little bit. So that's kind of why I'm like, well, dang, I thought they would do a little bit better than that. But no, they didn't. And they don't. And they out-tanked us in the tank bowl, tankathon, whatever you want to call it. But as far as the Colts...
Titans Tank 2, because it was a sequel, right? You know.
Oh, yeah. And then
half the wins are the Titans. Keep that in mind there, Tennessee fans.
But I also did not. So I don't know what to expect from this one because honestly, I don't know which New England, Indianapolis Colts team is going to show up, bro. Like the fact that they let the freaking New York Giants score 45 points. What? Like
what?
That game, Drew Lock became, I don't know. I don't know who Josh Allen. Like Buffalo's Josh Allen in this game, I don't know. I don't know what that was.
It's a New York team that wears red, white, and blue. I can see why you would say.
With everything on the line, with the playoffs on the line, they let those boys put up 45 points, and they let Malik Neighbors look like, I don't know, Julio Jones. I don't even know what receiver you want to name because he balling out of control. So what do the Jaguars look like against this same Colts team? Well, does this Colts team come out lifeless? It's already a Gus Bradley defense that we all automatically will play well against because we always do, no matter who the quarterback is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, damn. Do the Jaguars win this game? Because I don't know that the Colts hold them to less than 20 points, and the Jaguars would generally win if they score 20 plus points. So I might have to say Jaguars 24, Colts 20, bro. Like they might actually win this.
Yeah, so with the Colts, obviously the alpha of 23 was beating the Colts in their building for the first time in, 10 years? And they are the omega of 24. Do you see them winning back-to-back games in Indy to start to actually establish a streak, to break the streak? And apparently you do. I can't diss it. Like, for my money, I thought the Colts were going to be worse than they were because I thought Anthony Richardson would suffer more injury than even he did. Granted, some of it was to his psyche, as the Colts weren't even sure if they wanted him still or not, even though they allege he's their quarterback in 25. However, DeForest Buckner, man, I need to check his health status before I pound that particular horn. And if they make if you make the Jags one-dimensional and dare Mac Jones to beat you with underneaths and screens from BTJ as your run game, I'm just not confident. I don't care how many kicks Cam Little makes. You can only get 3 of them every time he does it. So
that's fair. So DeForest Buckner is healthy right now, and even if he was injured, you got the incredible former Jacksonville Jaguar Taven Bryant right behind him, who can also have a show-out game. You never know it because Jaguars.
Right, fair, excellent point. It's not like we saw the same thing from Falarantu Fatukasi twice this very season involving the Texans. A great point by you, Travis D. Holmes. So with all that being said, I am not optimistic that the Jags score 20 this time. I think they get to a mere, we'll call it 16. That's right. I am predicting 3 Cam Little field goals. And they will lose this game 23-16. We'll make it 26-16 on
losing.
I do. They'll keep that 5th pick. Travis is excited. Travis Hunters are excited. But yeah, give me the Colts. I feel like it's the least I could do after I abused them, thinking that Anthony Richardson would not play as many games as he did. And yeah, give me the Colts. I don't like that number though. Like I like 17 for the Jags or 16 for the Jags. I don't like 23 for
16.
Yeah, you know what? I'm keeping it. Screw it. 23-16.
23-16 Jags.
That's where I'm at.
Sorry, Colts.
Yeah.
Colts.
Colts. Thank you. 23-16 Colts. That's the number I'm going with, and somebody will make fun of me sure later. But it will not be because of Cam Little disrespect. That's what I.
Interesting. I'm not used to this. This is weird. I'm not used to being an optimistic person, and the only reason I'm being optimistic because it's the worst possible thing for the Jaguars.
It's because math. That's why you aren't. This isn't optimism. This is analysis, sir.
I'm here for it.
Travis, man, listen, we're gonna have a fun one for the Duval Dive Live, I'm sure, on Sunday. Tell the world where you can.
I am sure. Hey, man, you can find all my writings covering the Jacksonville Jaguars. BigCatCountry.com. We have the post game write up every week. Within probably 20 or so minutes after the game is over, it is up. It is there. It's going to have all your highlights, all the advanced data, all your PFF players of the game, all of that information. Also, we'll cover the press conferences, any breaking news. We should be talking about updates on the stadium within the next, I would say, week or so coming out as far as the construction starting. So now that we are done with the home slate for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and just any of your additional information, again, Big Cat Country as your favorite. Also hit me up on any of the socials, Travis D. Holmes, whether that's Blue Sky or X. Ooh, Robert, 17-16. Lord, oh, that sounds ugly. Oh man,
I almost went there. It just felt too low.
Yeah, that feels like the first Titans game. I don't think we're there anymore. I think we at least are using BCJ as a number 1 receiver, and I think he's going to give you 7.
And that got you a touchdown. You got 3 from Cam Little. Okay. Yeah.
Anyway. And he don't miss. No, that's fair. All right. So yeah, Travis D. Holmes, all the socials, BigCatCountry.com. Save it as your favorites. And we have Inside the Pigskin on Tuesdays via the South Florida Tribune. That is at 7:30 on Tuesdays. Where can you be found, sir?
By the way, I ran to your guy, the Motor City Mad Mouth there.
I know. I heard
over at the bowl games. Yeah, he's all like, "Hey, you should come on." I'm like, "Well, hey, I'm waiting for the invite, so you might see me on the Pigskin show there soon enough." Yeah. Oh, hey, listen, we're gonna entertain the hell out of those guys if I get there. You know that. Of course, sir. I'm Kyle Nass, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as a student of the game. Check out the Fans First Sports Network, where you'll find me writing Orlando Magic, Jacksonville Jaguars, and the aforementioned Cure Bowl, Pop-Tarts Bowl, and Citrus Bowl. There was so much controversy at the Pop-Tarts and Citrus Bowls. It was crazy stuff. We got plenty out there on the socials for it, mine and as well as Fans First Sports Network socials, not to mention my work with the Black and Gold Banneret, blackandgoldbanneret.com. We recently did our 2025 prediction drop there. That'll be coming soon. I have something very interesting out there for you UCF football fans. I will be writing some UCF men's and women's basketball as well there. And then, of course, the Night Shift podcast coming up every week to keep you up to date on all things UCF, including hirings for Scott Frost, as well as basketball, baseball, softball, yada, yada, yada. So, commenters, strong game tonight. Thank you very much for jumping in. I know we didn't get to all of them, but that's just because you guys were on fire like that. You were Kings of Leon. And take for that what you will. So, of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game, for my personal champion, Travis D. Holmes of Big Cat Country. Until next time, everyone, class dismissed.